Right, so Jake Paul will be taking on the biggest and some would say stupidest fight of his entire career when on Friday, the 19th of December, he takes on former unified world heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua in Miami, Florida. And I'm not even going to bother saying where on earth did this come from because we've heard the rumours. All I can really say is, what the fuck? Like, seriously, what the fuck? Jake, you're a talented young man, mate. You do not need to throw everything away for this fight. But in all seriousness, I'm going to get straight to the point and answer the question that I feel like a lot of you guys want to know the answer to, and that is, what is the likelihood that Jake Paul gets himself seriously hurt in this fight? And I'm going to be hopeful, I'm going to be optimistic, and I'm going to say around 50%. That's the chance that I'm giving Jake Paul to get himself seriously hurt in this fight. Now, what do I class as seriously hurt? Well, I'll tell you what I don't class as seriously hurt. Straight away, I'll rule it out. And that is Jake Paul getting stopped in this fight. Because I've seen fighters get knocked spark out, and then I've been in the bar having drinks with them afterwards. You're not seriously hurt just because you've been knocked out. I count seriously hurt as something that's maybe untreatable, can't be fixed, or will at least have a prolonged healing time. So let's say, for example, bottom of the spectrum would be a broken jaw, right? Because you're eating through a straw for a couple of weeks. Ultimately, you're going to miss out on work because your jaw is wired shut and you can't really talk, so you can't do your media obligations, but you will live to tell the tale. And what I don't want to see is Jake get seriously hurt. Because believe you me, if Anthony Joshua can do this to Francis Ngannou, then what do you think he can do to Jake Paul? And it really does make you ask the question of why. And there will be so many of you commenting right now with those 4 letters. C-A-S-H. Cash. We all want it, and this is a way to make some quick. Notice I say quick and not easy, because despite the fact that you're probably gonna have to endure some punishment to make that cash, will it necessarily even be quick? Will Anthony Joshua put Jake Paul out of his misery that quick? And is there more to this? Because look, there's fights like Tommy Fury, KSI, Darren Till, for example, even like Mayweather, the Tank fight that was supposed to happen originally, where Jake Paul can make a lot of cash, maybe not as much as the Anthony Joshua fight, but a lot of cash, and can still have a serious chance of going on to earn even more paydays. Whereas the damage that it could do to his body could be irreversible for that opportunity to earn money in a boxing career going forward. So is this the retirement bag, or do you actually think you can win? Because I read a study recently, and I believe it said something along the lines of men overemphasize or overcalculate their ability to fight by about 500 times. And I'm saying Jake Paul would probably need to be 500 times better to stand a chance against Anthony Joshua. And I can't get how he doesn't already know this. Surely he has sparred with heavyweights. Surely the recent sparring that he had with the likes of Shakur Stevenson and with the likes of Ray Ford, amongst others, Badu Jack, surely that would have taught you that there are levels to boxing. And if these small guys are able to show you things that you had no idea that you were vulnerable to in a boxing ring, what happens when someone who hits 4, 5, 6 times as hard as that does the exact same thing to you and lands it on your chin? The whole reason of why I know where I am in the influencer boxing scene, in the misfit scene, is because of the level that I have sparred at. I've sparred boys that have gone on to box for world world titles. I've sparred with English champions and I've sparred with loads of Southern area champions. And doing that enabled me to understand what level I can reach in boxing and what level I can't reach. And some people might say, well, Jake Paul's clearly more ambitious than you. There's no reason for him to be, because he's not a better pound-for-pound boxer than me. So there really is no reason. And that really does make me think that one of two things have happened. Jake Paul has never, ever had serious elite sparring anywhere near this weight division, or he's had it, he knows, and he just doesn't give a fuck. Maybe it's the prior. Maybe he genuinely believes that he can beat Anthony Joshua. Maybe he's looked at the fact that Anthony Joshua has looked chinny, I was about to say recently, but to be honest, pretty much from the start of his career. From the start of his career, he has shown that he does not have good powers of recovery. Once you hit Anthony Joshua, he does seem to stay hit. And speaking of being hit, he can be hit fairly easily. Anthony Joshua's defense has never been one of his attributes that people have been shouting from the rooftops about, and most people right now would say that he is on the slide. And not only that, right, he's been beat by men who are in far worse shape, aesthetically at least, than Jake Paul. But all of that means a grand total of fuck all when Anthony Joshua gets in the ring with Jake Paul. Because I personally don't think that Jake Paul is even good enough to spar with Anthony Joshua. And if they were to have shared a spar or something like that, it would have been for PR, not as a way to sharpen each other's tools. But before I tell you why this fight ends awfully for Jake Paul, let me just put some credit on his name where I feel it is deserved. Jake Paul's constantly set himself challenges, and for the most part, he has been able to overcome them. I know boxers that started boxing at the same time as Jake Paul and have not got anywhere near the level that Jake Paul has got to. And when I say that, I'm not on about the level of achievements. I'm actually on about the level of skill set. I believe that he has acquired himself quite an impressive skill set. He showed that he's a natural at the sport, and he showed that maybe originally, if instead of being on the Disney Channel, he had have turned his hand to boxing, he could have done something as a professional in the sport, albeit with the reality being that he probably wouldn't have earned a penny in comparison to what he has earned. Because he's gone from fighting YouTubers to non-combat athletes to retired combat guys to MMA guys to retired boxers, and now even active ones, if you want to count Chavez Jr. as that. And whether you do count him as it or not, what you can't deny is it is a man that has fought Canelo. It's a man that's seen better days, both physically and mentally, but it's still a man that's been in there and fought for world titles and won world titles. And for a kid to have gone from a Disney Channel actor and YouTuber to getting in the ring with that is impressive. I hold my hands up, I clap my hands and give you applause, Jake Paul. And when you then factor in the marketing side of it, what Jake Paul and MVP have done is ridiculous. They've taken over the market when it comes to female boxing, and given the likes of Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor, so many more female fighters, so many opportunities that maybe they would not have had. So regardless of his level, Jake Paul has been good for boxing. I know so many kids in my local gym, right, that are better boxers now than Jake Paul, that are better boxers than KSI. But regardless of where they're at now, 3, 4, 5 years ago when they came into the gym, why did they come in? Why did they come in? They came in because of the likes of Jake Paul and Logan Paul and KSI and the influencer boxers. So whether or not the purists will ever accept it, this style of boxing, influencer boxing, celebrity boxing, whatever you want to call it, has filtered its way through to the grassroots. And therefore, if you can't accept that some good has come out of this sort of subculture within boxing, I think you are in denial. But I'm also not deluded, and I also understand that there is a huge gulf between influencer boxing, between misfits boxing, MVP boxing, and world level boxing. And whether or not you believe that Anthony Joshua is still at world level, I'm going to let you in on a little secret here. Against Jake Paul, he is going to look world level. Because despite me praising all of Jake Paul's achievements and his progression, he's not actually done anything from a sporting standpoint in his 7.5 odd years in the sport, has he? I mean, what has he done apart from competing with Tommy Fury and scoring a knockdown against Tommy Fury, a man who may or may not be area level as a pro boxer? And AJ won an Olympic gold medal within 5 years of stepping foot into a boxing club. He didn't do it with head guards. He didn't do it with bigger gloves. He didn't do it against weight-drained or retired fighters. He did it against the best that every country competing had at their selection. And if you're AJ, you must be smiling and frowning at the same time. You must be smiling because it's happening and you're getting a mega payday. But surely you must be frowning at the fact that this kid and others out there believe that he stands a chance of even beating you. And look, if the stars align, maybe Jake Paul could close his eyes, he could put his head down, he could throw a punch sent from the heavens and he could clip AJ on the chin with it. But even if he does, I'd put my money on it that it doesn't do anything. I don't think it does anything to Anthony Joshua, even if Jake Paul does manage to clip him, because Joshua's never been hard to hit anyway. But the difference between getting hit by a Jake Paul and getting hit by a Daniel Dubois is monumental. And even that is an understatement. And the difference for Jake Paul in getting hit by a Nate Diaz compared to an Anthony Joshua is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. What do you think AJ would do to Nate Diaz? What do you think AJ would do to Tommy Fury? Come to think about it, what do you think Francis Ngannou would do to Jake Paul? And look at how that went. So either way, what I'm saying here is quite simple, right? Jake's style is very, very easy for Anthony Joshua to navigate. And that is even if the skill set between the two were on par. Because although he's getting better at them, Jake still makes many, many fundamental flaws. He leans over his front foot when he jabs, and that's a problem because when you do that, you're always going to have the potential to be countered when you lean over that front foot. So if you do lean over your front foot, what you want to do is you want to take your head off that central line, or you want to take your feet back. What you definitely don't want to do is leave your chin there exposed for a prolonged amount of time. Now, what could be a recipe to leaving your chin there? Well, if we've already established that one of Jake's weaknesses is the jab because he's vulnerable to be hit when he throws it, you probably don't want to be throwing the double jab all that much either. More time spent in that vulnerable position. And guess what Jake Paul loves to throw? He loves a double jab. He also throws it from very low, meaning, yeah, it can be harder to read, but from a defensive standpoint, if you're in there with someone with quicker hands than you, which AJ has got, by the way, you're also easier to counter. If it comes from low, it usually goes back low. So although it's harder to see, it's easier to counter. And speaking of jabs, right, Jake Paul found it really, really hard to get past the jab of Tommy Fury, which in my opinion was very, very basic. However, one of the things that brought Jake's success against Tommy Fury, despite him being in there with, in my opinion, a better boxer, was the fact that Tommy wasn't able to just demand center of the ring against Jake. And for me, that was a good thing because I don't think that Jake Paul can fight very well going backwards. I mean, in fact, if you look at all of his knockouts, and this is just off the top of my head, knockouts, knockdowns, things like that, I'm pretty sure they've all come off the front foot. I'm pretty sure they've all come when Jake Paul was pressing forward. So say, for example, Deontay Wilder knocking out Helenius. That's a knockout off of the back foot, for example. And I don't think that many, if any, of Jake Paul's knockouts have come off the back foot. And because of that, you have got to understand that it's going to be harder for Jake Paul because he is going to be on the back foot in this fight. Anthony Joshua sticks one jab on this boy and he goes on the back foot, and when he's on the back foot, he goes back in straight lines and he's very, very predictable. So for me, there's two ways that AJ can approach this fight. He can do what the boxing purists would want him to do, and that is go in there and get rid of Jake within the first 30 seconds, within the first minute, maybe, if he was able to survive a knockdown. Or he can look for the highlight reel knockout. And the way I envision that one coming is similar to what Anthony Joshua did to Charles Martin all those years ago. Staying really, really patient, waiting for your man to overcommit, and the second he does, you pull the trigger, you pull back, you counter with that right hand, and to be honest, I really do see that being the way this fight ends. Because if Anthony Joshua comes out there and plays possum a little bit, if Anthony Joshua lets Jake Paul get a little bit of a rhythm and lets Jake Paul feel that he's in a bit of a comfort zone, then I do think that Jake Paul has something in him that's just a little bit tapped. And I do think that Jake Paul in that moment will think, fuck it, let's go for it. And when he does go for it, I think that's when he gets caught. I think that's when he gets really, really badly hurt. But I'll tell you one thing, right? I have to nick a point off Brian that he made on the Pain Game the other day here, because Jake Paul's winning of this fight is not actually winning the fight. It's just landing on Anthony Joshua. If Jake Paul has got a highlight reel of him landing a slow-mo right hand on Anthony Joshua, he can dine out off that. He can spin that story. And you know what? In the YouTube world, it really is about that, innit? It's about the flex. It's not about saying, oh, I beat Anthony Joshua. It's about saying I landed on Anthony Joshua. You don't have to beat him. You don't have to drop him. Not many people have even dropped him. Look at the people that have dropped him. Klitschko, Andy Ruiz Jr., Daniel Dubois. It's not bad company. Do you know what I mean? Only elite fighters, to different degrees obviously, but only elite fighters are getting AJ out of there. So all world champions to different degrees. And if Jake Paul lands on Anthony Joshua, despite me not feeling like much happens, he can dine out off that. He can definitely dine out off that. But he might have to dine out off that, because from a physical standpoint, I don't know whether Jake Paul will box again after this fight. I'm sure it's great for the bank balance, but once AJ really sets his sights on Jake Paul, I think that Jake Paul's time in boxing could be done. I've seen world-level fighters retired by other world-level fighters. What do you think a potential world-level fighter could do to someone of the standard of Jake Paul? So, do I think that Anthony Joshua is going to go for this one when it happens? Well, yeah, I do. I think that Anthony Joshua wins this one via first round stoppage. I think there's a chance it sees the second round, but ultimately it wouldn't surprise me if Jake Paul gets blitzed within a couple of seconds here. We're being told that it's going to happen in 10-ounce gloves. We're being told that it's not an exhibition. So will Anthony Joshua take pity upon Jake Paul? Will he try and give the fans somewhat of a show? Or will he just go in there with mean intentions to rid boxing of what he probably sees as somewhat of a circus show? Saying that, he did box Francis Ngannou. Saying that, Francis Ngannou is probably a harder fight than Jake Paul. So, in terms of Jake Paul getting knocked out, yes, I think it happens. Do I think it prepares Anthony Joshua for Tyson Fury? No. But at the same time, I think that every single fight that Anthony Joshua has between now and the end of his career is putting miles on his clock. So, what better way to just get paid, put no miles on the clock, and then head into a stadium fight with Tyson Fury? And you know what? Probably pick up some new fans in the meantime by tapping in to that audience. People, this is mad. It's just dropping. These are just my initial thoughts. I want to know yours. And also, by the way, if you've made it to the end of another video, you'll probably notice this is my second upload in the last couple of days, and I have put no effort into this channel. I've really not been trying with it. I've got so much more on my plate, and I'll be honest with you, I've not been seeing the returns from it to be able to do that. So if you want to see content come out off of this channel, you are going to be the difference maker. You guys, like the video, run the views up on it, and if it does well, I'll carry on making content off of this channel. I will see you all in the next one.